My name is Shanduke McPhatter, and I'm running for the next Brooklyn Borough President.
Okay. Why are you running for Brooklyn Borough President?
I'm running for Brooklyn Borough President because I am a born and raised Brooklynite who have come through every step that is needed to be able to understand the needs of our Brooklyn community.
Okay. Where in Brooklyn are you from?
I am from downtown Brooklyn, South Brooklyn. I've traveled throughout Brooklyn as a young teen. Anywhere through Brooklyn I've been, I've hung out, and I've understand most of the community of Brooklyn.
Okay. So you mentioned you understand the needs of people in Brooklyn. So what are those needs? What's your number one priority? If you were to get elected, you get to Borough Hall, what's the first thing you want to do?
My number one priority in getting to Borough Hall is public safety, gun violence prevention. That is a key thing in changing the dynamics of what the future of Brooklyn looks like.
Okay. Obviously, when it comes to public safety, the relationship between people who live in Brooklyn and the NYPD is super important. It's been at the forefront this entire summer when we've seen a spike of crime and through the BLM protests. How do you plan on helping to facilitate a better relationship between Brooklynites and the NYPD?
I've been on the negative side of NYPD, and I am now on the positive side of understanding they have a job to do, just like we have a job to do. We have to come to terms of respect in each other in our community, and I've already taken steps to be able to make that happen by meeting with community affairs, gun, gang awareness, NYPD staff to best help the community that we want to serve.
Okay. Um, Education is a huge issue as well. The inequality of education across the borough is stark. And many people would argue that education and is a pathway to avoiding or just being even involved in schools is a way to make sure that, kids it's not a school to prison pipeline. How do you plan on helping, establish an equal education across the borough?
Well, I'm already inside of the schools, being a product of the prison school to prison pipeline myself. I come to understand the needs of our young generation growing up in school, especially at a time like this. So we've already been, as a community organization, went into schools to work and do programs to work with these youth and work with teachers and work with parents and work with the unions that have different ideas on shifting how we make that work for our youth in our schools.
Okay. I'm going to pivot back to that in a second, but housing is something else that I'm just want to make sure to ask each candidate about. Brooklyn has an insane need for affordable housing right now. And right now, if a new developer were to come in, they only need an 80-20 split of 80% being affordable. And 20% being affordable, 80% the market rate. How do you hope to try to alleviate that problem so families can keep staying in Brooklyn where they're from?
So that's one of the things that I have to really start listening to the community, those who've been involved in that for so many years, that have a clearer understanding of the problems and the issues in regards to that. But when we talk about affordable, it's never affordable for the broader community that we're serving. So we have to figure out how that now has to shift to make it more comfortable for those who are in NYCHA who want to get out and have real affordable housing. So we're working to work with all the unions, all the NYCHA residents, to be able to understand the best next steps forward to deal with the housing crisis in New York City. There's a lot of homelessness. There's a lot of people who are coming out of prison who are not even receiving the right type of housing that leads to recidivism. So there's a lot of many different issues that we want to focus on.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your background. Obviously, that is a huge part of why you decided to run, and you run your own nonprofit organization. So just explain to me, you mentioned that you had been in prison, so run me through the timeline of that.
I'm a foster child. I've never seen a picture of my father. Raised downtown Brooklyn, Whitecroft Gardens, next to Warner's houses. Came up in a neighborhood that was ravaged with gun violence. At the age of 16, I was first incarcerated. From the age of 16 to 30, I went back and forth throughout the system doing 2 state bids. In 2008, I made a mental shift and changed the dynamics of how I looked at life. My mindset changed, and I started my organization, which is GMAC Incorporated, which stands for Gangsters Making Astronomical Community Changes, taking what I understood to be a problem in my community and work to shift the narrative by mediating conflicts and helping the community and reduce the risk of gun violence. And working with city agencies and working with CBOs, I've come to learn throughout the 10 plus years I've been doing this work that there's a greater need to provide the right type of resources to grassroots organizations to continue to grow the public safety that is happening in New York City under the, for example, crisis management system and other community-based organizations.
So what is the thing that you're most proud of that GMAC has done? I mean, what is the one thing that you'd say you're most involved in?
If I chose one of,
Mm-hmm.
it's the fact that we have people who come from any walk of life will reach out to us for assistance and help to be able to save a life, right? They're comfortable with knowing that we're a go-to tool to be able to provide resources, some type of job, something to help their family member. And that's what sticks out for me the most, along with those who are my staff members and team who continue to show when everyone says change is not possible, that it in fact is.
Okay. So for people who might be cynical, you have publicly said that you are a former gang member, somebody who's looking to choose the next borough president, and they're, you know, judging a book by its cover. What would you say to that sort of person that doesn't know you personally, but might just decide not to vote for you because of that one part of your past?
People are going to choose not to vote for all candidates for one reason. Right? Whatever that one reason is, that's their prerogative. I have a experience that no other candidate has. We talk about gun and gang violence, which is one of the top issues in our borough and in our city. I have an understanding experience that none to bring to the table to be able to work with these individuals. And I'm an example of change for them, for somebody's child who may be thinking about getting into a gang. I'm the curse breaker. They want it to be seen as if you go through these things that you cannot be possible to be positive, you cannot change. And I'm the person who's going to continue to show that through my actions and through the community I continue to help.
Okay. The last thing I wanted to ask, just again, talking about the cynics that are, you know, looking at each candidate. If you Google your name, one of the first things that comes up is, in the past, your organization not being able to work at Rikers anymore because of an alleged gang threat that was made onto a neighbor. What's your response to that, to people who might be shocked by that kind of realization?
One, I'm falsely accused and haven't been convicted. They continue to drag it through the courts for the sole purpose of this as a position to stop someone from growing. There's no truth to any of that. I have documentation that anything that someone says out their mouth doesn't have facts until you provide paperwork and documentation that shows that. If you look at my history over the last plus years, you'll notice that there's nothing of that nature that has happened in my life. And this was a ploy to continue to have public opinion bring down another community leader. I am going to be vindicated of that when I'm finally given the right to be before a judge and have a trial if this case isn't dropped before that time. But I've done so much more since my release from my last prison sentence in 2008, and including opening up GMAC and having 2 offices that has continued to reduce gun violence in the areas that we work in. Why is that the first thing, the major thing that comes out, that stands out when you Google my name? It's the same system that has been continuing to work and bring down Black leaders for years.
You just mentioned that there were 2 officers that you had been working with.
Offices that I have in Brooklyn, 2 offices. But I
okay, offices. Okay, just making sure.
So yes, I have 2 GMAC offices, one in East Flatbush and one in Fort Greene.
Okay, yes, definitely. Okay,